What was the strangest moment in your life that you still can't explain to this day? It's Midnight Monster here, and I'm coming at you with 8 of the strangest moments in people's lives, and they still have trouble recalling it to this day. If you have any similar stories, do drop it in the comment section below. If you don't know who I am, I read daily stories of some of the creepiest, most disturbing, strangest moments. If that sounds like something you like, check out the channel, and let's hop into story number 1. This was maybe 4 years ago. I'd been drinking with my best friend at his place and was on the late bus home. I must have nodded off somewhere along the way because the next thing I know is the bus driver's berating me for sleeping on the bus. I'd been sitting in a dark corner, so he had not seen me. He's taken the bus back to the depot for the night. This was some 2 miles outside the city and even further away from home, and at 3 a.m., I was getting ready for a long walk. My fiancée was in a different time zone, so I called her to keep me company, as it was only an evening for her. As I'm slowly making my way towards the city using the skyline for orientation, things are starting to look familiar. It's not a part of town I visit often, but I know my way around. There's a train station with a railway bridge overhead. It's going towards 4 a.m. now, so there aren't many trains running. I pass underneath it and keep walking, thinking I should be home in an hour or so. I find myself approaching the railway bridge once more. I'm thinking, okay, I'm still a little drunk. I must have gotten turned around somehow and taken a few wrong turns. But it's still weird I wound up in the same spot, coming from the same direction. I keep walking, but sometime later I end up walking towards the damn bridge again. At this point, I am shaken, and I tell my fiancé I must be pretty drunk as I keep getting lost and ending up at the same spot. She says she cannot tell from my voice and to use my map app from here on out, which I do. I swear I have no idea because I put in my home address and was stubbornly following that little damn arrow. But 20 minutes later, I look up and see the freaking railway bridge again. At this point, I'm just trying to keep my shit together. It's past 4 a.m. now and several hours since I've had my last beer. I'm feeling sober and freaking out. I decided to take a different route than I'd been trying before, defying my app and going down some streets I've never seen before. At this point, it's getting late from my fiancé too. I tell her to get ready for bed and I'll figure out something. Somehow pretending to her that I'm not worried about being stuck in some weird time loop. Finally, I start seeing familiar landmarks again, only this time I'm in a spot several miles outside of town, surrounded by nothing but fields and the occasional outlet store. I have no clue how I ended up here, as it's miles out from what I could have realistically walked in an hour. But I'm just happy to have made it. At this point, it's after 5 a.m. and the first buses are running, and I'm finally able to get home. When I think and talk about that night, I still say, ha ha. Remember how I was walking home drunk and got so lost it took me more than 3 hours? But I still get an uneasy feeling anytime I'm near that railway bridge. Back in 2000, I and my girlfriend, both 21, and our daughter, who was 2 months old at the time, moved into a council house in Essex, UK. One night, we were both asleep in bed, both of us stark naked as it was during a particularly hot summer. My girlfriend woke me up with a slap and said, "You're funny." I turned over because I was pissed that she woke me up and I asked her what the heck's going on. In her hand, she had a large adjustable spanner. She went on to explain how the coldness of the spanner woke her up the instant it was placed on her bare chest. She thought it was me playing a prank and would not believe when I said it wasn't. I was so scared that someone else had broken into our house, put it there, and I got up and checked all the windows and doors. I then did not sleep for 3 nights straight. The spanner was mine. It was kept in a toolbox in a walk-in cupboard downstairs. But at the time, there was no access to the cupboard as we were having a new kitchen fitted, and it was blocked. Many strange, creepy things happened in that house. The baths would fill up with water overnight, to the point that the second I put the tip of my fingers in the water poured over the edge, also bangs. Footsteps upstairs, etc. But the spanner was the one thing I struggled to explain. Nobody ever liked to stay at our house, and we only found this out after we moved. Family and friends would say they never liked it there and would avoid spending too long at the house. Roll on to 2006. I'm no longer with my daughter's mom, and I'm okay with work friends for a drink. The girl behind the bar is giving me glances now and then, and I'm feeling good, as I think I might have pulled some. She asks me what school I went to and where I work, as she recognizes me from somewhere. I tell her, and she says you must just have a recognizable face, as I've seen you before. I tell her where I was from before I split with my ex and moved to another area. She says she lives there now. So we both agree we may have crossed paths before. She tells me the road she lives on, which I say, "Oh, well that explains it, I lived on the same road." She then tells me the house number, 302, the very same house I lived at. What she said next will stay with me forever. I've been living there 5 months and I hate it. I and my boyfriend think it's haunted. I've even woke during the night with an empty pint glass on my chest. I told her about the spanner and she burst out crying. We exchanged numbers so we could chat in a later date. A week later, I spoke to her and her boyfriend, and they said they had moved back to his parents' house. I never heard from them again. I'm 100% a skeptic, and I do not believe in ghosts or the supernatural, which might sound crazy after you read this story, but I'm convinced it must be something else. What it is, I don't know. Even to this day, my ex thinks it was me who put the spanner there. I loved playing tricks on her, yeah, that's true, but how is that a prank? It's not even funny. And if it backfired because I shit myself thinking we had an intruder that night? It's Midnight Monster here. If anyone's ever had a haunted experience with the paranormal while they're living in a house, apartment, or any type of building, do let me know your story in the comment section below. Story 3 is coming up, and the setting and time place of this will be 8th grade for OP in a small private Christian school. If you're enjoying the content so far, show some support for the channel by smashing that like button. And here comes story 3. This happened when I was in 8th grade. I attend a small private Christian school at the time. School started at 8, but my dad had to work early, so he usually would drop me off at about 7:15. I would then go to before care, when an adult supervised everyone who was early. I remember it as an ordinary morning. I felt totally fine and did what I usually did before caring. Went to the back corner of the cafeteria, lay my head down on the table, and closed my eyes for a few minutes before my school day began. All of a sudden, I started experiencing this sharp pain in my chest. The best I can describe, it felt like my chest was having a cramp, as you get with your legs when you're working out or playing sports. I did not panic, but I got out of my chair and quickly walked out of the room, down the hallway towards the restroom. As I walked down the hallway, the pain got sharper and sharper. My vision started to go dark. The last I remember was falling to my knees and realizing I was not going to make it to that bathroom. By the time I was completely on the floor, I was unconscious. I have no idea how long I was out. The next thing I remember, I was waking up on the floor of the hallway and quickly realized 2 things. To this day, I find strange about the situation. The last thought I had before I passed out was realizing I was not going to make it to the bathroom. Yet, when I woke up, I was a few steps past the door to the bathroom. This was near the end before care period, and the school was about to start, and the hallway at this point was usually pretty busy. Yet, when I went to go to the bathroom, the hallway was empty. And when I woke up, the hallway was empty. I went into the bathroom to compose myself and make sure that whatever happened would not start again. After that, I went back and before care and on with my day. I felt completely fine, and to this day, that pain in my chest has never returned. There were 2 of the same moments. So, I used to hang out with my friends at a local shopping mall pretty often. That's a bit far from the city. The only road that connects to the mall is a highway with lots of cars going fast and no sidewalk. Once, when we were in this mall, we had the idea to go to another mall that was closer to the city, and conveniently, The highway that connects to the Mall 1 leads directly to Mall 2. There was a small problem. We did not have a car and we were pretty short on cash. So, we decided to go to the mall on foot, through this highway. The distance from the two malls was just shy of 3.72 miles, so we thought we would be fine. We then went on a journey to the mall, walking on the shoulder of the highway oppositely so we'd see the oncoming cars. I also had a flashlight that I used to shine a blinking light in the direction of the drivers so they would see us. I was very careful not to blind anyone though. I know that it was still very dangerous. It was at nighttime and the wind was blowing pretty hard. It was about 12 miles per hour and very cold. But we were laughing and chatting about all sorts of things, so we were fine. In the middle of the highway between those two malls, there's a huge valley that is well known for being a place where murderers go to throw bodies. There were several people found in that alley. We were pretty scared to go through this section of the highway, but we went there anyways. We were a group of 4 people and all we had was knives, so we thought we would be fine. We made our way to the mall successfully, and then we proceeded to sit somewhere to talk and etc. We sat down and talked about how cool it was to go from Mall 1 to Mall 2 on foot, and thought it was a fun experience. Talking a bit more, we noticed that none of us remembered going through the segment of the highway known for being a place to throw bodies. We did not remember anything, and we couldn't even be sure if we went there or not. But the only way that we could be on Mall 2 was going through that segment. We then got to the conclusion that we must have been distracted and did not notice we went there. The next day, I was watching the news and saw that a body had been found at the place the night before, at approximately the same time that we were there. I was shocked because we would have seen the police cars and helicopters. That's when the craziest thing happened. The TV helicopter footage showed a group of 4 people with a blinking flashlight very near the spot where the body was found, indicating that we had been there, even though we did not remember. I shared the news story with my friends and we were all pretty stunned. We all went to the neurologist to see if we were okay, which we were. Fast forward 6 months to last week. I was in Mall 1 with the same friends as before, and we decided to go to Mall 2 on foot, the same way as before. What's the result? Everything went fine, but still can't remember going through the body disposal segment of the highway. Nobody was found there this time, and we decided not to go back. This past summer, I scheduled with my husband that I would take our 2 dogs on a very long walk down the beach once I got home from work. Then he could pick me up on his way home from work, about an hour and a half after I get off. Well, about an hour and a half into the walk, which was around 5:30, I was hit with a wave of extreme fear, anxiety, nervousness, and the thought of something bad is happening over and over again just out of nowhere. I stopped and examined my surroundings for wildlife, other people, anything that could be telling me over and over again something bad is happening. No animals were around, not even seagulls or other birds, which are usually always here. No cars on the road next to the beach. No people anywhere near the beach, despite it being a nice day. And people are regularly working or exercising or even playing at the beach. No boats out, despite people always working on boats just off the shore. It even felt like the ocean waves were silent. I pulled out my phone to see if there was just something going on because I felt super paranoid that something bad was happening. No text, no alerts, nothing. So we continued down the road. The dogs and I made it at 6 p.m. about 3 miles into the walk. Intermittent breaks and water breaks. We had about a mile until I would be in the area of houses that was where my husband was supposed to pick us up. On the north side of the road, I spotted a herd of wildlife about a mile away. Up into this road and decided not to proceed further anymore as they are not friendly to dogs and seem to be moving in our direction. So, we turned back towards the water, sat on a log to take a break and give the dogs some water, hoping I'd spot my husband's car on the road. We started again and stopped at a washout a few minutes later so the dogs could walk and play in it. I then got a call from my husband that something had happened at work and he'd be on his way as soon as possible, so for me to just rest with the dogs wherever I'm at. I said, okay, don't worry, and I'd start heading back because the wildlife was nearby. He could just pick us up wherever he sees us. By 7 p.m., the dogs were exhausted, so we were moving slowly, but only had about a mile left, so we were enjoying our time. We all needed the exercise and sunshine anyways. My husband's coworker called me and tells me that there was a death at my husband's place of work at about 5:30 p.m., and he was a first responder to the scene. It was the first time he had ever performed CPR on something or someone, and the individual had been dead for some time at the point my husband found him. The dogs and I made it home about an hour and a half later, and a few minutes after that, my husband came home. My husband was fucked up for weeks afterwards, and still is dealing with some trauma and grief from it. 5:30 p.m. is when I got that overwhelming feeling of fear and felt that the whole world around me was completely silent, and my brain repeated, "Something bad is happening." The feeling of the silence and the emptiness of the sea and beach and roads around me felt like I did not exist all of a sudden, or that I wasn't in this world anymore. I don't know how else to explain it, and I can't explain the whole thing other than coincidence. Worked security for a local security company that was just starting up, and they specialized in monitoring heavy levee equipment out in the orchards. I had no radio, no gun, no mace, no flashlight, and no phone service. I was strictly there to monitor and take notes, but if anything did happen, the nearest help was 30 or 45 minutes away in town. Fast forward to a few weeks off night shifts along the levee with a bit surrounding of orchards. I was pretty comfortable at my new location with its one road in and one road out as the only entrance for a few miles. It was about 02:30 in the morning when I hear an alarm clock going off somewhere in the murky darkness. I'm positioned alongside the levee in this position, O+O, with my car being the O on the right, the levee as the plus sign, and the alarm sounds coming from the other to the left. I turn my car on and drive over the levee to where the levee workers had a portable office container with a few chairs and a table set up around where it sounds like the alarm's coming from. As my dim high beam started to sweep across the orchard, I see a dark figure. Multiple rows back, seems to fade behind a tree quickly. I stop there and stare into the darkness, barely disrupting my piece of shit's car's headlights. Nothing moves and I can hear the alarm still going off, so I get out of my car using the light on my phone. I find the culprit sitting on a white plastic table. A single small square battery-powered alarm clock was singing away as my brain screamed at me to return to the car. I quickly popped the batteries out of the alarm and hopped back into my car as silence returned to the orchards. As I was reversing out of the spot, my headlights bathed the trees in the light again, and the same similar shape was now 3 or 4 rows closer, but this time it seemed to crouch down behind a tree. I sat there for a moment longer, staring into the void before my brain screeched, "What if there's more, and this is the distraction?" The thought encouraged me to back up into the high part of the levee, and there I waited for the next 3.5 hours, alone. It felt torturous, like 1,000 eyes were burrowing into every square inch of my car and soul from every angle. The quietness of the orchard is something very unsettling in the wintertime. No insects, no wildlife, nothing wandering about. All I could hear was silence and my pounding heart for the next 3.5 hours of my shift. I almost wanted some monster to come tearing through the trees, bellowing out, "Here I am! I'm here to eat you!" But instead, I saw and heard nothing more. My morning shifter shows up late and starts casually drinking his hot cup of coffee as I give him the rundown while the sun starts to peek into the sky. I still remember the stream trail from his mug and the chirping of early birds as we decided to investigate further into those orchards. We ended up at the spot where I saw the figure. After some quick scanning, he ended up spotting some really large footprints from boots that seemed to pace back and forth in a line along the trees. We then tracked them and led offwards towards the worker's office container and abruptly stopped near a tree while still a few rows back. Nothing more, no follow-up footprints leading forward or backwards, no vehicle tracks leading out of the dirt. No one could have gotten past me without trudging through the orchards. It was as if someone appeared, paced back and forth in a line for a few hours, walked forward, and then just disappeared without another step. We reported it to the boss and he shrugged it off, saying maybe it was an elaborate prank by the construction workers. But let me tell ya, that was one of the last shifts I worked doing security for that company. A bizarre coincidence. This happened when I was 17 back in the 90s. I was living in a small town that we had moved to from a larger city about 30 minutes away. My friends and I would find rides to the city often to alleviate our small town's boredom. This friend started seeing someone who used to live in the city and had a vehicle, which was convenient. They convinced me to meet his best friend. We'd go to the city to get him and go play pool somewhere. We head to the city and pick up his buddy. He sits in the back with me and tells us where we should go for the pool. I noticed we were near where I had grown up and mentioned my old neighborhood. He says that's crazy, I also lived in that neighborhood. Maybe we knew each other. I told him I moved away in 1990 and he said that's when his family had moved into the neighborhood. So no, we had not grown up near each other. Then, here comes the weirdness. He says, I'll show you where I used to live, okay? He's giving directions and I'm sitting there looking out the window at the old neighborhood that I lived in until I was 7. It's a fairly big area full of low-income housing complexes, and I'm surprised to see us turning into the house I used to live in, the brown houses. At this point, I had not told anyone I knew about growing up there. I had terrible nightmares in that house. I was traumatized by the basement and the bedroom closet. I was a kid, so nothing crazy here I know of. But there were very vivid terrors that I still remember to this day. And now we're driving up my old street, pulling into my old house, which is also my date's old house. I'm already shocked, but before I can say anything, he says, "This is where I used to live for 5 years. That window up there was my bedroom, and I'm telling you, it was fucking haunted. I rarely had a good night's sleep in this house. So many nightmares. It was an evil place." He had pointed at my old bedroom window. His family had moved into our house right after we moved out. He had the same bedroom as me and even had some of the same goddamn nightmares. This random stranger I met on a double date. I don't know how we've experienced the same supernatural shit. That weirded me out the most, but even the fact that we both lived in the same house, out of the thousands and thousands there, is pretty amazing. Last summer, my daughter, who's 22 and I'm 57, took a vacation to the Washington coast. We'd been there many times before as we lived close by and knew the area fairly well. We were driving south on Highway 101 back to our hotel, which was about 20 minutes away, when we saw a sign for the road that branched off to the left. I mentioned that it might be a shout out, but we both decided that we would not take it because we were not sure where it went. The next thing I knew, we were driving on a country road. There was pastures with sheep, barns, old country houses, and businesses on both sides of the road. I did not recognize anything, and I was confused. I was shocked to see fields around us. I had no clue how we got there. It's like I woke up or something. I asked my daughter if she remembered sheep fields and pastures along the highway before. When I spoke, it startled her as if she too had been asleep. What I'm getting at is that neither one of us knew where we were or how we've gotten there. We thought maybe 5 minutes had passed since we saw the other road. We had no memory of pulling off Highway 101. We were both certain we would still be on 101. We pulled off the side of the road and opened Google Maps to figure out where we were, and realized we were on the road that we thought might be a shortcut. Both of us swore we did not turn left onto the road. We both remembered going forward and continuing down 101. We even remembered passing by a particular store that was after the turnoff. We were both, completely freaked out. We had no memory of the 20 minutes prior, did not remember seeing anything, did not remember driving there, nothing. It's like we time warped from Highway 101 to the spot we're at now. We'd lost 20 minutes. The road we were on now did eventually get to the city we were aiming for, but it was quite a drive out of there. We never did figure out how we got there, with neither one of us remembering. It's been over a year and it still does bother me. Guys, Midnight Monster here. I hope you enjoyed those 8 stories I brought to you today. Here at Midnight Monster, we aim to deliver a video every single day. We cover all sorts of topics from creepy stories, unexplained mysteries, paranormal dramas, ghost stories, you name it. If that sounds like something you're into, do subscribe to the channel as there's going to be so much more content. I hope you have an amazing night and I'll catch you in the next one. Midnight Monster, thank you.